We talked in an earlier installment about the offering and its place in worship now that electronic giving has become so popular. Because the plates often return pretty sparse, some folks are wrestling with whether the practice of receiving the offering as a part of worship is still a good idea. Well, whether or not you've decided to stop receiving the offering by passing the plate, it's still important to talk about how people can make a gift and how that gift becomes ministry and mission. Two important things to remember here. One, giving is spiritual practice and it's therefore to be encouraged. And two, your church depends upon that practice to resource its ministry. The moment in worship when the offering comes provides an excellent occasion to let your congregation know how their generosity is making a difference. I've had the privilege to worship in a lot of congregations, and surprisingly, this opportunity often slips by. Sometimes, believe it or not, nothing is ever said at all. This happens most often in congregations where the offering follows the communion service. The elders or ministers just take the offering plates off the table and start passing the plates to the deacons or ushers, and those folks matriculate down into the pews. If you attend there or are part of that worshiping community, I suppose you know the drill, but if not, I suspect it catches some people unaware. A second practice I often observe is that someone simply says, "The deacons will now come forward and receive our morning offering." And then all at once the deacons pop up together like toast and start what can only be described as a race between themselves and the musicians to see who can finish first. If you didn't prepare ahead of time, that plate will be by you before you can even open your wallet, let alone find a pen in your purse to write a check. I've also noticed that these same churches also seem to be the ones who put pencils in the pew racks instead of pens. Now, your people love you and they trust you, but how many of them are going to let you take a check they've written in pencil? Now, there could be anything worse than those examples, which seem tantamount to almost ignoring the offering invitation. It would have to be when that occasion is used to talk about a shortfall in the necessary offerings to meet payroll, pay the electric bill, or service the church's building fund debt. I once heard someone on a hot July day say the trustees were considering shutting down the air conditioner for the rest of the summer if you people don't start giving more. This in a sanctuary where not a single window was capable of being opened. If there ever was an invitation to stay home and maybe not come back. But you know, every now and then, I do see this invitation to the offering done exceptionally well. And perhaps it's not a surprise to learn that it's usually not the minister, the treasurer, or member of the staff who's doing it. Often it's a lay person talking about why giving is so important to them and why they believe in what the church does. Sometimes it's a mission partner who's come to briefly say what they do and to thank the congregation for helping them do it. The best ones will always talk about a life that's been changed rather than how many dollars are given or how many pounds of food were received. But the best one I ever witnessed was when a fellow who came forward at the time for the offering and hesitantly walked up the center aisle. It was clear people didn't know who he was. He turned, he faced the congregation, and he said, "Hello, my name is Bob. Most of you don't know me, and that's okay. I came this morning simply to say thank you. About 10 years ago, I lost my job, my family, and nearly lost my life. All I cared about was my next drink. I was a mess. I met someone who attended the Thursday night AA meeting here, and he invited me to come. For some reason, I did. Now, to be honest, for the first 18 months or so, I was probably drinking more days than I wasn't. But he kept encouraging me to come back, and, well, I'm really not sure what happened, but one day it just sort of clicked. It wasn't easy, but I stopped drinking. I found my serenity. And it's still a struggle some days, but I have my life back. I'm working again. I have a good job. I'm remarried and I have a family. And I'm so grateful. And now I'm encouraging people in that same struggle to come here on Thursdays just as I did. And I just wanted to say thank you for supporting us by giving us space in your building. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't come here all those years ago. And with that, he walked back down the aisle and left. The morning offering then was received, and let me tell you, there was a lot of what we call folding money in the trays as they moved through a teary-eyed congregation. Because you see, they had an incredible realization that the ministries they supported were changing lives. And who doesn't want to be a part of something like that? There was a connection between the passing of the plate and the ministry and mission of the church. It's not about making people feel guilty so they'll give because you might be behind in your budget. In fact, it's not about the budget at all. It's about the life-changing, transforming power of the gospel and the work that God has called you to do together as a community of faith. Use that moment every time you gather for worship to tell your amazing story. And I think you'll be amazed at how that transforms the moment and how generous your church will feel when it comes time to give. And a funny thing, when people feel generous, they become generous. For the Center for Faith and Giving, I'm Bruce Barkow.